name is Mr. T. First name is Mr. Middle name is that period. Last name is T. Listen and listen good. I'm talking to you.
The 80s were the time of radical and gnarly TV shows. Seriously, this was a decade that gave us Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, Transformers, G.I. Joe, shows that just screamed badass and style. And of course, just like with any other decade, comes the weirder stuff that nobody really ever talks about anymore. We aren't talking about tame stuff like Alf or gummy bears. No. This is advanced weirdness. So today, we're gonna dive in headfirst and take a look at the top 12 wackiest kids shows born from pure 80s weirdness. Mr. T. Can you think of a bigger 80s icon than Mr. T? Well, I mean, maybe Chuck Norris. But did he have his own show? Well, yeah, he actually did. But whatever, the point still stands. Mr. T did indeed have his own cartoon in the 80s, and it was weird. The series followed Mr. T, who now acts as the coach for a gymnastics team. They also travel around the world and solve mysteries, because of course they do. That was like a requirement for the time. And of course he had a goofy ass dog that shared his mohawk. Each episode would start off with the real Mr. T explaining what's about to go down in this episode. Then some mystery happens, and then at the end a narration by Mr. T plays, talking about what the moral of the story was. Pretty standard stuff. What made this so bizarre was, well, it's Mr. T.
So you want to play rough? Nobody talks to me like that.
It's just such a weird concept to have him going around the world solving mysteries with a bunch of kids and a dog. It sounds like a Family Guy joke, but it was intended to be taken seriously. Perhaps what's most notable about the series is that it's the first role Phil LaMarr had, who would later go on to star in Samurai Jack, Futurama, Justice League, and many more. It also gave us a pretty bitchin' cereal, so it had that going for it.
Teaming up with Mr. T cereal that's getting on the team that knows how cool breakfast can be. You get a crispy corn taste with a touch of brown sugar. Teaming up with Mr. T.
It's cool.
Super Ted. Super Ted is a teddy bear with superpowers, okay? This series was originally created by Mike Young as a collection of books to help his son overcome his fear of the dark. It became super popular and then turned into an animated series. Like Young's son, Super Ted was also afraid of the dark until one day. Mother Nature gave him a magic word, which would give him superpowers. Well, that's actually the premise of the original story. The animated series is a bit different. In the series, after being created at a toy factory, he was deemed defective and was thrown into the storeroom. Instead of Mother Nature, an alien just happened to be passing by and used his cosmic dust to bring the bear to life. Then the alien brings him to Mother Nature, who gives him his super powers. Now Super Ted and the alien travel across the world to help those in need and to fight his arch nemesis, Texas Pete. Kind of random to have different types of themes thrown together and not much to do with overcoming the fear of the dark. Like everything, Super Ted is apparently getting a reboot. Much of it will have to be changed though, as the main villains were a gunslinging Texan, an overweight man who makes constant weight jokes, and an offensive, over-the-top, flamboyant gay skeleton.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Pearls are a sort of creamy colour, aren't they, Ted? What?
But either way, we'll have to wait and see if this reboot actually gets made or if they're all talk.
There's no time to lose.
Banana Man. Here's another British one, a classic, Banana Man. A nerdy schoolboy who turns into a caped, muscular superhero when he eats a banana. It's okay though, he was created as a parody, so he gets a pass for being a really dumb idea. The character first appeared in a British comic book, Nutty, back in 1980. 3 short years later, Banana Man entered the animated world in his very own cartoon featuring the voice talent of The Goodies, a British comedian trio. The boy, Eric Wimp, would eat a banana and gain the powers of flight, super strength, and invincibility. Nothing really banana-related, honestly, but it's pretty much just Superman. He was also sent to Earth from the moon as a baby, so that pretty much is also the same too. The show was actually quite popular in the UK, leading it to be aired in America on Nickelodeon alongside Danger Mouse. It's nowhere near as popular in America as it was in Britain, which is probably why you never heard of it. Over in the UK though, it stayed popular and even got a musical adaptation running from 2016 into 2018. A film reboot was even planned with a poster being released and everything back in 2014. It is currently going through production hell and is probably cancelled. So sorry to all you Banana Man fans as well as the 2 American Banana Man fans. The world is just not ready for a Banana Man cinematic universe.
BraveStarr. BraveStarr, with 2 R's, not 1, was an American space western created by Filmation to sell action figures, taking place in the 23rd century on a desert planet named New Texas. BraveStarr is a Native American marshal who can use spirit powers to call upon animals to grant him power like the eyes of a hawk, the ears of a wolf, and the strength of a bear. Mate, that's fucking sick. His horse is this creepy horse alien thing that can walk on 2 legs whenever it wants. What the hell? Or become a standard horse when need be. Looking at this thing, it makes me feel uncomfortable. What the fuck am I looking at? I'm not going to show him anymore. He's gone. Perhaps the concept was just too out there for most people since the show and action figure line weren't very popular. Filmation did the logical thing when it comes to dying franchises, and of course made a big budget theatrical film version. It flopped, and 2 years later, Filmation shut its doors for good. Was BraveStarr to blame for this? Maybe, but I'm blaming it on that creepy fucking looking horse thing instead. A way easier scapegoat.
I'll do my best. You just make yourself pretty. Oh, by the way, the pink ribbons and perfume are in the top drawer.
The shoe people. What if the Smurfs wear shoes? There you have it, that's your show. One of the shoes looks like a dick. Fuck's sake. What else can really be said? The Shoe People was a British animated series that aired in 1987 and then randomly got a second season 5 years later called The New Adventures of the Shoe People. The series was created by James Driscoll, who got the idea after noting that the shoes that people wear can say a lot about their personalities. He then wondered what the shoes could say about themselves when they were new, and when they gradually would wear out, falling apart in their last days of life. Fuck's sake, this is dark. The show takes place in a shoe repair shop in the back room where the owner keeps all the shoes that he can't fix. However, he cannot bear to throw them away. At night, the shoes come to life and live in Shoe Town, which magically appear in the back room. There's your premise. He can't get rid of his hoarding habits and refuses to throw away his used fucking shoes. Go get some new ones. Aside from that weird concept of being a show about talking shoes, the actual show itself is pretty basic and mundane. It's the talking shoes you're there for, and after you've seen it, there's not much else to look at. To each their own, I guess. You either like it or you don't like it.
Kid Video. Deke Enterprises was one of the kings of 1980s cartoons. Care Bears, Inspector Gadget, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and G.I. Joe were just a few of their productions. They were truly the embodiment of 1980s animation. Now, having that title also comes with a few downsides, namely the shitty 80s cartoons. They were also the creators of Beverly Hills Teens, Captain N, and the focus of this segment, Kid Video. This strange series follows a young musician named Kid Video and his band, also named Kid Video. He had a bit of an ego. The title sequence started with a live-action version of the band when suddenly an animated villain known as Master Blaster appears and sucks them into his home dimension, an animated world called the Flip Side. These kids were just so hardcore that Master Blaster wanted to use them as musical slaves forever. Luckily, a fairy saves them and they spend the rest of the series trying to find their way back to the real world. But in their downtime, they breakdance, skateboard, play video games, and just jam out to some slick rock and roll. We might have found the purest 80s cartoon of all time. It just oozes with the decade. You can practically smell the tab. The show had some pretty popular music of the decade that played during the action sequence, but they also played their own original music and supposedly went on tour in Israel of all places in 1987. The series is now owned by Disney, so maybe it'll be a part of their all-star Disney Plus lineup. Maybe a live-action edgy reboot? Maybe. Just maybe. The world is finally ready for Kid Video, especially with all the 1980s nostalgia being flung around. Denver the Last Dinosaur. Alright, we did say that Kid Video was the most 80s cartoon you could possibly find, but we may have spoken a bit too soon. Now that we know that Denver the Last Dinosaur is a thing, we're honestly not sure anymore. So the series follows a bunch of cool California teens in the 80s, one of which is named Shades, which should give you an indication to kind of show that this is. The teens come across a dinosaur egg and out pops Denver, the last dinosaur. The teens educate Denver about modern life, specifically skateboarding, playing electric guitar, and eating junk food.
Bon appetit!
I don't understand it. According to my book, this is what dinosaurs like to eat. See?
Denver, being an intelligent dinosaur that can speak English, just takes this all at face value and just kind of rolls with it. Oh, and for some reason, Denver can use a piece of his egg to take the gang back in time to when he was born. The kids probably could make a lot of money with this technology and even further the human race, but nah, they're above all of that. They just want to go surfing with this last of its kind creature and pump them full of junk food that's probably toxic for them. Much better. Denver, the Last Dinosaur, was such a strange relic from the 1980s that sort of stuck around until the mid-2000s. Knott's Berry Farm, a theme park in California, ran a promotion with Denver in the form of a ride, which was the newly created Kingdom of Dinosaurs. Denver stuck around until about 2004, which is quite a long time for a radical 80s dinosaur that's way past his prime.
Alright, let's get really weird. You ever look at a car and think to yourself, mate, I wish I could be like that. Not like owning the car, no, literally turning into it. Your human flesh and bones twisting into metal and rubber. You're boiling blood into oil. Your organs becoming wire and motors. This concept was explored in the tragically forgotten Turbo Teen, and I'm guessing it was explored to begin with because of the popularity of Knight Rider at the time. Ruby Spears Productions were looking hard for a version they could sell to children. Well, kids can't drive, but what if they just transform into cars instead? Absolute genius, not a bad idea. Turbo Teen follows Brett Matthews, a teen who is about to become turbo fucked during a thunderstorm. He swerves off the road and into a top secret government lab. Him and his red sports car are accidentally caught in some kind of ray bean or whatever the fuck, fusing them together. That's how science and molecules work, apparently. Now when Brett is exposed to extreme heat, he turns into his car, and then back into a human when exposed to extreme cold. With this new amazing power, Brett and his buddies, who get inside him when he's a car, which sounds dodgy in every conceivable way, travel around the world to fight crime and, solve mysteries or something. The series has been parodied to hell and back, notably Robot Chicken, Futurama, and Rick and Morty. If you ever get nervous about creating your own animated series, just remember that Turbo Teen was greenlit. If that can get made, anything can. Rubiks the Amazing Cube. It's literally a cartoon about a floating, talking Rubik's Cube. This one has the face and voice of a fucking gremlin.
Rubik need map, please. Rubik find you.
So Rubiks is a magical cube who can only come to life when all the colours on his side match up. It would really suck if he happened to fall into the hands of the one kid who has absolutely no clue how to work a Rubik's Cube. Anyways, an evil magician wants to capture him for reasons. It's not clear for what the magician really wants with him, other than to use him for evil shit, I guess. The kids in the cube go on adventures together, solving crimes and fighting mysteries or some shit, I don't know. It's just another one of those shows. You've heard one, you've heard them all.
Pandemonium. After the massive success of Tom and Jerry, MGM Television never really attempted to make another cartoon series. Well, that is until 1982, when they graced the world with Pandemonium, an absolutely bizarre show that you would never assume came from the same company behind Tom and Jerry. In the series, an evil wizard called Mondragor tried to steal an ancient artifact known as the Pyramid of Power, but it shattered when he tried to touch it. Now scattered across the world, two random kids race against Mondragor to gather the pieces before it's too late. They're also accompanied by 3 talking pandas who accidentally were mutated by the powers of the pyramid. You might think this only gives them the ability to speak, but no, these pandas are full-blown mutants. Whenever they combine, they fuse into this creature known as Papa Panda, who has supernatural powers. They're also pretty annoying. Every time they speak, there's like a laugh track that follows, even when there's no joke.
The pouch with the pyramid pieces, it's gone!
Oh gosh, how did you know that?
It must have fallen off in that taxi.
Follow that cab!
How do you like that? My career's at stake and we're chasing a piece of glass around town. Oh, brother.
Unfortunately, they couldn't collect all the pieces because the show was cancelled, so it looks like Mondragor won in the end. That's a bummer, but maybe it's for the best. If this is what it looks like when they try other types of shows, then maybe MGM should just stick to Tom and Jerry.
The California Raisin Show. Shows based on advertising anything other than toys or video games are rarely ever a good idea. Remember the Geico Caveman show? It was bad. Really bad. The same can be said for the California Raisin Show. The show is based on a claymation special, which spun off from a Sun-made commercial made out of desperation. After their previous commercials had failed, one of the writers exclaimed out of desperation that they have tried everything but literal dancing raisins singing "I Heard It Through the Grapevine" by Marvin Gaye. So they did it, and it was a hit. Who would have thunk? So the claymation special was pretty popular, iconic even. This immense popularity surely meant that the Saturday morning cartoon was going to be successful, right? No, the California Raisin Show was not claymation. It was instead cell animated, as it was much cheaper to do on an episode-to-episode basis. Although the show was only 13 episodes, so maybe they could have pulled it off? The series kept Will Fitton as a creative director and executive producer, just as he was for the Claymation specials. It also took place in a weird world inhabited by anthropomorphic fruits and vegetables, and usually had 1 or 2 musical numbers per episode. The show was bizarre, but not in a good way. It was clear that the California Raisins work way better as a commercial or a one-time special than they did in a half-an-hour episodic TV series. They also looked way better in claymation than they did in 2D animation.
Peewees Playhouse. Chances are you probably already heard of this one. Seriously, out of all the shows on this list, Peewees Playhouse is probably the most iconic, successful, and certainly one of the weirdest. Paul Reubens, the actor and creator behind Pee-wee, was given full creative control behind the series, leading to some bizarre concepts, set pieces, and characters. In this show, Pee-wee lives in a massive playhouse in Puppet Land. In this crazy world, Pee-wee hung out with his friends Conky the Robot, Terry the Pterodactyl, and Jambi the Genie, who was a disembodied genie head, which was more than a little freaky looking. He also had some human friends, like Cowboy Curtis, who was played by freaking Morpheus. Aside from the live action segments, there was puppetry, animation, chroma key sequences, and even claymation from Aardman, who would go on to create Wallace and Gromit. Even the production was insane. On day 1, the carpenters arrived to construct the playhouse with no clue what to build. The designers apparently designed the playhouse 15 minutes before construction began. The playhouse was over the top, psychedelic, trippy, and just weird. It was a beautiful chaos. But that's what the show really was. There's a reason why it's still fondly remembered to this day.
The secret word!